Okay, Mayor, we are now live on Facebook and on Zoom for the March 23rd, 2021 legislative session of the Town Council. I'll pass it over to you.
Great, thank you. Excellent, thank you, Jim. And good evening, everybody. Adequate notice of this meeting, as required by the Open Public Meetings Act, was provided through the posting, mailing, and filing of the annual notice of regularly scheduled meetings of the Town Council on December 11, 2020. The notice was on that date posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building, provided to the Westfield Leader and the Star Ledger, and filed with the clerk of the town of Westfield. Mrs. Rowley, may I have a roll call?
Mayor Brindle,
Here.
Councilmembers Havegood,
Here.
Harmony,
Here.
Agrippo,
Here.
Katz,
Here.
Mackey.
Here.
Contract,
Here.
Dardia,
Here.
and Boyce.
Here.
Can you all please join me for a salute to the flag? I pledge of allegiance
Allegiance
to
to
the flag
of
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice for all. Thank you. All right, Jim, we'll start with you.
Sure, I'll be doing a lot of talking tonight, Mayor, so I have a very quick update right now. I just wanted to mention one thing that I think is important. We're opening up our conservation center a week early. It opens up this Thursday. And we've already sold, as of today, over 230 permits, all online. So our second year of online registration, which is working out very well. So center opens up on Thursday for the season, which is again a week later than normal. And again, permits sold online. A couple things to remember. Because we're selling permits online, you have to come for your first visit and get your permit. So we're going to have the same thing we had last year when we opened up. We're going to have multiple lines to get in. We're going to have extra people there to process everybody as quick as possible, which worked out very well last year. And you'll be able to come back in if you get your permit the first day. You'll be able to come back in and use recycling and or use the organic debris on a different lane that is already set up. So but again, we have a lot of new recycling opportunities there that we didn't have at this time last year. We've had now, for a few weeks, but the number 5 recycling bin. We have books recycling, which is a new thing we started since last year. We added wine corks and tennis balls. We still have the normal staples of styrofoam and scrap metal and plastics and glass. One note that's interesting on styrofoam, the Public Works Committee just is going to be reviewing a year-end report, the next meeting next week. I just had an interesting note. Chris McAloon and I got word from the county. So the county as a whole, I believe, collected 36,000, was it tons, Chris?
36,000 pounds.
Pounds, okay, good, pounds of styrofoam. 18,000 of that came from Westfield.
Wow.
So just our conservation center, to give you a sense
Wow.
of the volume that is being collected at our center. And thanks to Richie Eubanks and his crew who are taking it and getting rid of it in the appropriate place after it's collected there. So it's, again, people want to do the right thing. We're having a big recycling opportunities at the center, which is wonderful. So again, the center opens up Thursday for the season. Online permits, all the information is on the website. And again, we're looking for another great season, and we'll talk more about it in the budget. But the Conservation Center was one of our bright spots last year. Was people really wanted to get out and do things in their home. They wanted to use our center. They wanted to recycle, and it was a really good revenue bright spot for us, and a getting out of the house bright spot for all of us. So it was a really good thing. But we're excited about that. I want to thank Chris and Greg O'Neill and Rich Eubanks particularly, and the staff of the Conservation Center for getting up and running for this week and a week earlier than normal. So thank you, Mayor.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim. And just a few updates for me before we get to the real meat of the meeting when the budget presentation. So good evening, everybody. Just remind everybody that we'll be taking separate Q&A after the budget presentation. And then after that, it will be public comment as it always has been. and will only be accepted via Zoom. So anybody that wants to ask questions need to join us via the Zoom link. And obviously you can watch it on Facebook via we're live streaming it as well. Just a little update on COVID. Unfortunately, numbers in New Jersey are certainly not going in the right direction. Governor Murphy announced yesterday, he reported that there likely won't be any additional announcements in the near future about loosening restrictions due to the recent increase in COVID numbers. New Jersey is unfortunately leading the nation in new cases per capita. The 7-day average for confirmed COVID-19 cases in New Jersey is up 11% from a week ago and up 29% from a month ago. I know that they are detecting a lot of the new variants, which is a big reason for that. It is that right now we're at the highest level since February 5th. The rate of transmission is 1.09. On the brighter side, the vaccinations up front, New Jersey has administered 3.56 million doses of the vaccine, including now there's 1.26 million people who are considered fully vaccinated with both shots. You know, you can always find detailed numbers on the New Jersey COVID-19 dashboard. We're getting so close to the end of this, we hope, but let's just, you know, you don't want anybody to get sick when we can see the end in sight. So please continue to do what we all know we need to do, as much as, you know, we're probably sick of it. It's for the safety of everybody. And please, if you're eligible, get vaccinated. And if you've got any issues or questions, you can join us on April 1st at 11 o'clock. There's a Zoom discussion entitled COVID Vaccine Fact or Fiction. It will be held for seniors and other vulnerable members of the community looking to obtain more information. The panel of experts has included Dr. Larry Butnick, who's our president of the Westfield Board of Health, Megan Avalone, who's our regional health director, our vulnerable populations coordinator for the board and for the Board of Health, and Dr. Pamela Brooks, who's a Westfield resident and vice president of the New Jersey Black Women Physicians Association. So you can just email westfieldnjseniors@gmail.com to get the Zoom information. But if you know anybody that has concerns about the vaccine, please encourage them to participate in this. There's a very, you know, obviously important that we get everybody vaccinated as quickly as possible. So there is some on-site viewing, but there's going to be limited viewing for that. So you'd have to register in advance. So I want to thank the Board of Health, Lifelong Westfield, the Westfield Community Center, Neighborhood Council, and the MLK Junior Association of Westfield for putting this all together and making this event possible. And just on another front, I hope you had a chance to see the glow seesaws while they were in town. I don't think anybody, we knew they'd be a hit, but I don't think we had any idea to the extent that they would be so popular. I want to thank the DWC for bringing joy to people of all ages. And I think that was so great. What was so great about this event, it was great for kids and adults alike. But most importantly, our downtown businesses is probably one of the most successful events they've had to drive foot traffic in years. Many of them record. I heard one guy said it was his best day in 15 years. So it's been incredible. The promotion and marketing of that with the chocolate tour and everything else was incredible. And it was a real team effort with the DPW installing them, and you know, the fire and police kind of keeping an eye on them. And I really do want to recognize the DWC promotions chair, resident Erin Ben Hayon. She suggested this brilliant exhibit, and then a lot of people brought it to life. So thanks to Bob Zuckerman and to Don Mackey. It was a great proof of concept that if you build it, they will come. And I think, you know, it became a big destination. And the great news is a lot of people were from out of town, which meant they came and they spent time, they bought lunch, they had shopped. And so we're really looking forward to the exciting plans that the DWC has, and we'll be unveiling soon for the spring and summer, which is going to be great. I was proud to join hundreds of concerned neighbors along with Councilman Linda Hapgood. On Sunday in Cranford, we attended the Stop Asian Hate rally to show support for our Asian American and Pacific Islander brothers, sisters, friends, and neighbors. It was great. They had a great turnout, and everybody standing in solidarity with the AAPI community to publicly denounce any and all forms of bigotry, hate, and prejudice. Linda and I were joined along with members of the Westfield Area Chinese American Association, an organization that has devoted countless hours of volunteer service to Westfield. We have connected them with our Human Relations Advisory Commission, and they are working on planning a peaceful protest in Westfield this Saturday at 1 o'clock at Mendawaskan Park. So I would encourage you to come and join them in solidarity. And I just want to reiterate that the AAPI community has the unwavering support of this council and this administration. And I want to be clear that there is a zero tolerance for any types of hate and bigotry in our community. I'm very grateful to the WACAA and the HRAC for their ongoing work to keep the lines of communication open and about the harm in these acts. Chief Badalora has been fantastic, is weighing in terms of the role of the police department and the prosecution of anything, any criminal acts that they can determine as bias crimes. And we definitely are going to continue and obviously work hard towards becoming a more inclusive community. So with that, I think it's time to move on to the agenda tonight, which we know is a big night for us, which includes the introduction of the 2021 municipal budget. I want to thank Town Administrator Jim Gildea and CFO Scott Olson, who worked diligently over the last few months with each town department to minimize our costs as much as possible without sacrificing services to residents. Special thanks also goes out to each department head. I'm sure Linda will talk about it more later, who worked diligently to identify cost savings where they could, and also demonstrated significant resourcefulness and nimbleness in light of these unprecedented times. I do want to thank the Finance Policy Committee, and in particular, Councilman Linda Hapgood, who serves as the committee chair and whose experience as a finance senior executive in the private sector has provided immeasurable value to this process. I always say Linda is an incredible gift to this town. So thank you, Linda. And also Vice Chair Councilman Mark Parmalee, Councilman David Contract, and Councilman Jim Boyes. They put in many hours of nights and weekends to produce a budget that reflects the substantial challenges of 2020 and the many exciting opportunities for 2021 and beyond. So you will see, and they'll show you in detail, we are very fortunate to be in a strong financial position this year in light of the revenue impact experienced by us and many municipalities as a result of the pandemic. I am grateful that we expect to receive $2.9 million in American Rescue Plan funds over the next 2 years, and it's given us the confidence and additional flexibility to move forward on town priorities for this year, while also well positioning us in 2022 and beyond to be able to implement some of the transformational initiatives that we've been working towards over the past 2 years. So we're also introducing the capital budget earlier than usual in order to get projects started and completed sooner, which I think Jim and Linda was going to talk about some exciting details on road paving and more. So with that, we'll get to work. Once again, we'll be enforcing Robert's rules just to ensure we stay on topic and the meeting runs efficiently. But I think from here, we're moving on to the budget presentation. So I'm going to hand it off to you, Jim.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. So let me share my screen for the PowerPoint presentation. Let's keep this going here. Okay, well, I'll again thank you, Mayor, and thank you, everybody. This is the annual budget presentation. We're doing it on time this year, unlike last year where we had to delay it because of the pandemic. So very happy that we're on time. So I'll be turning over to the chairwoman, Councilman Habgood, to start off, and we can go from there.
All right, great. Thank you, Jim. I think we can move to the first official slide. Thank you so much. This is, a very, very nice overview of all of the people who came together to help put this budget in front of the public tonight. We actually talked about it earlier this evening in conference session. And we'll be doing a fuller presentation for everyone right now. As the mayor mentioned, the yeoman's work for this budget always happens with our town administrator and our CFO, Jim Godet and Scott Olson. They start this process and end this process, and in between, the rest of the people who appear on this slide have a chance to, participate and provide opinions and insights and advice. We're very, very excited about the budget that we're going to be presenting to you tonight. So on behalf of the Finance Policy Committee of Councilman Parmalee, Contract, and Boyes, I thank all of the department heads for all of the hard work that they did to try to, really sharpen their pencils this year and, try to find cost savings wherever possible. There's a couple of other people here that we should really recognize. Our bond counsel, Rogat McCarthy, and Sapli Clooney, our auditors, both of whom are really invaluable advisors to us in this whole process, particularly as we've been, seeing some very unusual times over the last year that are continuing. And then I also wanted to make a note about the Investment Advisory Council that we started a few years ago. That is all resident volunteers, a couple of high school volunteers, as well as a number of finance, professionals. They're all busy at work, helping us to think about new ways that we can make the budget even better next year already. So thank you to all of them. For those of you who participated in the the kickoff to this process at the end of January, where we do our look back on how the how we did against our budget on the 28th of January. This will look a little familiar, but it's worth repeating because it does give you, a very good sense of all of the people and all of the meetings and all the time that goes into putting a very, strong budget together that reflects the needs of the town, the opinions of the residents, and helps us plan for the future. And that's something that I really did want to call out on this particular slide, the capital planning process that we went through at the end of last year, going into this year, that will, that's helping us to keep our road paving on track, and also to, keep introducing new infrastructure improvements. So what we've done now is look out very specifically over the next 3 years to identify, all of the capital budget items that we want to accomplish this year, next year, and the year after. So we'll be learning a little bit more about that as we get further into the presentation tonight. After tonight, we will take comments, from the public. On April 20th, that is the public hearing in which we intend to adopt the budget. So this is always a very important slide to start with as we get into the overview of the municipal budget. So the municipal budget is only that purple pie piece, representing just a little bit over 16% of the overall taxes that the town collects. So when you pay your taxes every quarter, the amount that you're paying, only 16% of those actually go to support the budget that we're talking about tonight, which is important for all of us to remember. The school budget, as you can see, is really the lion's share of the taxes that we pay in Westfield. So $106 million compared to our 28.5. And then you'll see the other portions, the library, which has a mandated budget, Union County, and then the Union County open space levy tax.
And just one thing to mention, Linda, if I could, it's important to note again, the county budget, I believe, is like last year, they're projecting a 0% tax increase. And again, they're a larger piece of the pie than we are. So when it all comes together, that is helpful for the residents, what comes out of the pocket, when the school and the county have, lower tax increases, it's helps the overall puzzle. We're such a small piece of the puzzle. Right. At our 16%. So again, good news for 22, like in 21, they're using more of their surplus, and they're going to present, from what I understand, a 0% tax increase for the second year in a row. So that's helpful for everyone's bottom line.
Westfield's leading by example, putting our surplus to good use. So we can thank Union County for, helping us to keep our overall tax increase low this year. So as we go through the rest of this presentation, Jim and I will kind of tag team on different things, but I think we wanted to start out by, just reminding the public about the fact that unfortunately, as the mayor just reminded us, COVID-19 continues. And so as we're, the highest infection rate in the country in New Jersey right now, obviously there are still going to continue to be impacts on, revenue streams that the municipality relies on. Last year, we had losses against our budget in the court revenues and in parking. We're hoping that, we'll do better this year, but we anticipated less just in case. But those things will continue, and we took all of that into account when we were putting this budget together because, we still don't know when the end of this is going to come. The good news is that based on the American Rescue Plan, we do know for sure that $2.9 million will be received by the town. Those monies aren't included in this budget as a revenue number because we don't have them yet, and we can't do that until, we wouldn't be able to do that unless we actually, had those monies in hand. But what we do know is that $1.45 million of that 2.9, or half, will be received by us very shortly in 2021, and the remainder will be received next year. So that will be a nice guaranteed replenishment of surplus when it comes in. The other good news is that vis-a-vis a lot of other towns in New Jersey, our fiscal profile continues to look very strong. We have maintained our AAA bond rating, and the surplus that we have very, very carefully managed over the last 4 years has helped us to get through probably one of the most difficult times that any of us in our lives have experienced. So as we look at the situation of the impacts from COVID-19, the most significant ones that we had to deal with in the budget this year came from lower revenues received than even our adjusted 2020 budget. So we had parking and court revenues decline. And based on that, municipal finance rules don't allow us to anticipate revenue higher than what we collected last year. So we had some interesting challenges for this year to figure out how we would make up for those differences. We'd had some bright spots in revenue that we didn't expect through the Conservation Center and through building permits. And the other thing that we really need to thank everyone in the town of Westfield for is your very careful payment of your taxes on time. So thank you. Our collection rates continue to be quite good.
Go, Linda.
Yeah, Jim, go ahead and jump into this
Sure, thank
slide.
you. Just again, as Linda said, we did have some bright spots in 2020, but one thing I wanted to mention, just back to what you said before, which is important for the public to understand. Yes, municipal finance laws are such that you're not really able to anticipate more than you collected the year before. There are things you can do, and the pandemic obviously provided some opportunities, but we didn't want to take advantage of those because it just creates further expenses in the future. And luckily, we were able to cut expenses to not have to do that, which is important. So again, speaking of reducing spending, so again, we do have very well managed salary and wages with 5 union contracts and coming in at less than 2%, which is tough to do in any normal year. So that's very helpful. Operating expenditures, we're cutting almost every department. We'll see some details of that in the coming slides. And the places that it couldn't be cut, there's obviously rationale for that. Debt service is down 2.52%. That was strategically decided because we want to set ourselves up for not only continuing our capital plan, but for setting ourselves up for bigger projects as we go forward in future years. Health insurance costs, we had a very good year this year. We had good experience. And so our health insurance costs were down by 6%, which is significant. That helped us really manage our statutory required expenses which is always a big number. And again, always looking for shared services. So while cutting those expenses, we still had $700,000 handed to us in non-discretionary expenses. So we had to deal with that. And we're still able, again, as Linda mentioned, and the mayor mentioned, thanks to all the department heads that, I talk to them every day, and, I sound like a broken record, but they always deliver. We need to obviously do more with less. We need to try to cut where we can and not try to not affect services as best we can. And they're always very resourceful with that. As Linda mentioned as well, so appropriations are up, actually it's 1.14%, not 1.17, but despite the $700,000 increase in non-discretionary expenses, again, we were able to cut where we could, but again, revenue down, second year in a row. 270 plus last year's 1.2. That's very difficult to overcome. We are projecting a little extra money in our sale of assets account, and the reason we can do that, again, we have great confidence we're going to replenish. We do have some property sales that are pending in 2021. We had some other sales we had last year to replenish some of our use last year, so we're able to use that with confidence, knowing we can replenish it and use it again if we have to in a future year. And again, all that being said, 1.98% tax rate being passed on to the residents, which is $66 per year for municipal portion or municipal purposes, which comes out to roughly a little over $5 a month, which is less than the rate of inflation for town services, which is great news. And then lastly, the surplus, again, looking to conserve surplus. So we did replenish the number back up to 9.6 the start of the year. So it was close to the $10 million target we try to shoot for. 2021 budget will use just about 3.8 million, and which is actually another $710,000 less than last year. So we had the luxury, even in a difficult year, to use surplus, but use less to conserve for future years. And then, as the mayor mentioned before, and Linda mentioned, we are very fortunate to be able to receive this federal stimulus. So now we have some confidence that not only will what we normally generate be added, but we'll have extra money that we're guaranteed to be added to our surplus and future revenue opportunities. So $5.8 million left in the bank untouched, plus the 1.4 we'll receive this year, plus whatever we generate, which has this past couple of years has been about $2 million. So we're very, very confident we're going to finish out and start 2022 in a very good spot. Anything else, Linda, on that slide?
No, I would just add, Jim, that there's ongoing work to look at opportunities for shared services that in the future will enable us to bring costs down. We're looking at inside of the courts and in some other things related to the DPW. Even in the middle of the pandemic, we're doing a lot of planning, as I mentioned, around the capital budget to continue to set ourselves up for a diversification of revenues in the future, through the redevelopment efforts and those kinds of things that will bring new revenue streams in over time and reduce the tax burden on the residents.
Good, thank you. So quick graph or chart here. Just again, this is the tax rates for since 2012. So again, this is where we are in 2021. But again, under 2% for many, many years, which is great for the residents.
Yeah.
On a small piece of the budget. Of course, we've had obviously the big decreases here, 18, 19. These are the two pandemic years. So even in the pandemic, we can be under 2% tax levy or tax rate, which is important.
And sometimes, and I think it's also important to say that, you need to look at these things, sometimes over, a period of time, because if anyone read the letter that I wrote to the leader, emphasizing the fact that the budget is a new puzzle every year. There, are new things that come to us in non-discretionary costs and, just new circumstances that present themselves. We have to use all the tools in the toolkit to, figure out how, we solve for the, results that we want and need. But I think I'm certainly, quite proud of the fact that if you take the average over the last 4 years, we've only increased taxes by 1.1%. And, the 4 years before that, the taxes increased by 2%. So we're, working hard to make sure that, we're looking at cost savings where we can, and that we, are utilizing, surplus in, a proper way while maintaining a good nest egg to help us in times when we need it.
Another, slide about surplus, some of the historical uses, the numbers. And again, here's where we are in 2021. Using 3.795, keeping a nest egg of 5.8, obviously, as we talked about already, and we'll see what we generate. But you can see what we generated even in a year of pandemic, 2.5 million. The year before that, 2 million. The year before that, 4.2. So again, every year, as Linda said, every year is different. Things are handed to you and things change. But based upon the last 2 years, even in the year of pandemic, we had a rather good natural generation of surplus, never mind the stimulus money we're going to receive. And again, you really look at the number that you start the year with. That's what, when we meet with the auditors every year, we're looking to see where do we start with. Yes, we have a bank when the budget's introduced here and adopted, but of course there's money that we generate, and then that generates a new number for the beginning balance. So, there's another, let's go to the next slide, as I think it's important. This is another slide on surplus, gives some context. We used this slide at our January 28th meeting when we had the public meeting for the public to have input. And again, this is just a comparison. These were obviously very difficult years during the Great Recession. And you can see obviously lower numbers, but big percentages of surplus needed to be used to get through those years, to avoid layoffs, to provide and maintain services as best as possible. And the generation was obviously not there. Fast forward 18, 19, 20, 21, 2021, the pandemic years. Good news is we really haven't had to use any more than 39% of the available budget each year, even in a pandemic, which is rather remarkable, which is kind of why we're, you see budget or surplus use is reducing each year where we can, so we can conserve it. And again, generating money back every year, even in a pandemic. So we feel very strongly that, again, surplus is being used in the rainy day, as it should be. That's what it's there for. But also, we're able to replenish surplus use every year. So just a little comparison, but I think the percentages were an interesting thought. Less than 40%, of course, a lot of it, there was not much choice back then, but it gives you some comparison at least. Any other thoughts there, Linda?
Nope, I think you covered it. Thank you.
So this slide is about, again, revenue.
Details.
Yeah, details. A lot of numbers, all right? But let's focus on some of the big points here. This is just something to show the public about revenue losses. So again, 2019, this column here, this is our last, what we'll call normal budget year before the pandemic hit. And you can see, things like, a normal year for the court, 462. Normal year for parking, close to 1.7 million. Normal year for the building department, 1.1 million. Give you a sense of those things. Then 2020, luckily the pandemic of all things hit early in the year. So we had an opportunity to make changes to the budget. Otherwise, if it had hit later, our budget would have been set. So that was very important for us. So we automatically made some assumptions. Remember at the time, 1 year ago, everyone kind of thought the pandemic would be over by the summer. And so we made some assumptions about reductions in revenue for a number of months period, and hoping it would come back. So we did make some reductions, but even then, so we anticipated 338 in the court, only collected 224. Anticipated a reduction in parking, came close, but not all the way there. And again, as Linda mentioned before, then you have to focus on, okay, what are we really going to take in 21, court and parking? And you get a chance to see now the variant versus 2019. So the anticipated amount for 21 versus what we normally would have collected in 19. So parking and court are big losses. Even though we're gonna, we again assume and we project that we should do at least the number here and maybe better because things will get better. Vaccinations are on the rise. Things are getting better, despite our little setback in the past week or two. But even if we do better, we're still behind where we were in 2019. So we have a long way to go. And so that's why the federal stimulus is helpful to replenish some of the lost revenue and surplus use. Other categories, again, back to the building department, that was one of our bright spots. So we normally collect 1,100,001. We reduced it to 800,000, not knowing what we'd had. We actually exceeded our expectation in 20 to above the 800,000, but we're still being conservative. We want to make sure we think we're very confident now we're going to collect that, but we want to make sure we weren't going to over anticipate, because then you don't create this excess opportunity, which helps us to anticipate more for the following year. So that's one example. Another example here, fees and permits, another bright spot for us. We did 593 in 2019. Some of that was, we thought, one-time revenue sources. We only anticipated 440. There were some ordinance changes, some fee changes, conservation center permit increases, etc., road opening permits for utility work, and wow, we had a very good year. So some of those things really helped us. Again, we're not doing the full amount, trying to cut back a little bit, but we think we have some opportunity for excess there. So you can see, though, overall losses in revenue in these categories is not insignificant. And we have to make sure that we're managing that going forward. And again, sewer fee here, we did increase the fee because we had a big increase the past couple of years. We did not increase the fee in 2021 because our increase was very small. We'll see that. That's really the only major revenue increase we had in all these categories for 2020 and 2021. So again, revenue losses are the story, and to have 2 years in a row where you're losing revenue is something a lot of towns really can't handle. So important. Again, big picture, budget-wise, this is just the overall comparison of budget years, 19, 20, and 21. And the increase, decrease here is 21 versus 20. But again, I think some things to note, our total budget in 2019 was 46,000,007. Both 2020 and 2021's budget are below that. So those are important factors. We also, so you establish a budget of an amount from this year's 46,625. You then have to have the matching, revenues. So that's made up of our revenues that we can control to a certain extent, and then the tax levy. So again, revenues were down by 6% in 2020. Revenues are again down by 1.6% in 21. So the levy has to go up. But because of the rateable increase, we'll see that in a little bit, but the rateable increase, we had a big increase thanks to our new tax assessor and his work on catching up with ratables and having property values increase. And even during the pandemic, the divisor that we use for the budget is a higher divisor. The ratables are up. So that helps us produce a 1.98% tax rate to the resident. Last year was 1.95. And of course, the little menu here is blocking it, but it was 0% tax increase in 2019. And again, 2019, you see revenues were up 6%. So again, when you have revenues going up, you have a lot more flexibility, which we haven't had in 20 or 21.
Right.
But go ahead, Linda.
And Jim, before we go to the next slide, I think it is worth mentioning that, so people look at this and these are, a lot of big numbers, and it's hard to see how, it relates back to each of us as individuals, but the average assessed value of a house in Westfield is $800,800. So if you look, at what this 1.98% increase means, it means $5.50 per month for the average Westfield resident.
And then thank you, Linda. And the one last thing I forgot to mention, every major aggregate expense category is under 2%. And that was something that the committee wanted to make sure they came in as low as possible. So that's just another factor. But yeah, you're right. That the average increase for municipal services by themselves is $5.50 a month. And the county and the school board and the library are other pieces of your tax bill. But good news story, I think. And this is just a pie chart to let everybody know where the money is spent, how it's allocated up. So you see Statutory required expenses are 37% of our budget. Those are numbers for the most part that are just given to us. That's our Railway Valley Sewage Authority costs, pension costs. We'll go into a lot of detail in a minute about what those are. Salary and wages, another big part of our budget. I will say though, while it's a big part, anyone that works in corporate industry knows that salary and wages under 40% of a major operation like we run is still a pretty successful operation. Normally salary and wages are a much bigger percentage. And then you have other categories like reserve with the taxes. You see that's a large piece of the pie there, 5.4 million, and only the town has to budget for that. Because we are the tax collector, we have to guarantee the taxes to the school and to the county, whether we collect them or not. So we must, by law, budget a number called reserve onto the taxes, and that's something that makes up a big portion of our budget. Debt service obviously was down this year, but again, a decent portion, and operating expenses. All the departments' operating budgets, again, only 11%, but this is really, the title of the slide says 12% of our budget is really discretionary. And that's not very much in a $46 million budget. So the committee is always looking for places, and a lot of that happens in this piece of pie and in this piece of pie possibly. And then there's some discretionary costs we have in the deferred charges in the capital improvement fund, which we're able to move up and down as financial flexibility allows us to do. So, but again, salary and wages and statutory required are the two big numbers. So some of the detail of that, how it's broken out, we have salary and wages here, some detail, so you can see it. Again, important to note, so public safety services represent almost 60% of the total salary and wage budget. And the other big portion is public works, part of the public safety operation. So they make up the largest portion of our budgets, the largest departments, police, fire, and public works. As you would expect, you see the increases here for those departments. Obviously big numbers, but in the scheme of things, still very manageable percentages. The health department, of course, as you might expect, very busy department the past year. We did obviously have some increases there due to staffing needs. So that was expected, yet still very manageable. And then every other department here, again, very manageable, low numbers, in some cases negative numbers. And that's really for either savings, like the court's a great example of this. New court administrator started right as the pandemic began. She came in, a new fresh set of eyes, looked at how we do our operations, looking to manage different things, and we were able to save $28,000 due to some schedule changes, how courts are done, and other efficiencies. So that's a great one. So again, just well managed overall, total package of less than 1.6% in salaries and wages, with 5 union contracts included in that number. On the statutory required expenses, again, these are numbers that are given to us. Had a very big increases in pension this year. Last year, some of you might remember, our pension costs were very low. Pension costs are based upon an actuarial analysis done by the state of New Jersey that every town just is handed a bill. So we do have wide swings sometimes in pension costs, but even with a big increase in pensions for employees here, police and fire, PFRS is police and fire retirement system, PERS is everybody else, public employees retirement system. Even with large increases here, we were lucky and we were actually fortunate with other things we try to do, health insurance being one of them, good experience and negotiating new rates. So health insurance, a big reduction. Last year, if you might remember, we had a very large increase. RVSA, Railway Valley Sewage Authority, while we did have an increase, it's one of our lowest increases in about 4 years. So which is why we did not increase the sewer fee this year, able to absorb that small increase. But again, these are some of the numbers that just come in. These are the increases only. So you can imagine this, like the sewer fee is over $4 million. Pensions are over for like $3 or $4 million. Health insurance in the neighborhood of $6 million. So these are big pieces of the pie when you, it's a very simple slide, but a lot of money is represented here. So the operating expenses, as we mentioned before, we try to cut everywhere we could. You see a lot of red on this slide, as you might expect. Where there's not red, there's some obviously reasons for that. Public Works tops the categories this year. 103,000 of the 133 is the new recycling contract. And it's important to note, if you remember last year, we went through this process. We didn't receive any bids. We had to negotiate. And actually, it did give us an advantage. The negotiation of the recycling contract actually reduced our increase the bids we did receive initially were much higher than a $103,000 increase. So the negotiation helped us. We also had to actually increase salt for snowstorms. We didn't have to do a lot of that the past couple of years. Had to do it this year. Had to realize full year cost of recreation facilities maintenance, which extra money we want to put in there. So the cost in DPW were actually increases of over $250,000, but because of cuts in other areas, we were able to keep it down to $133,000. Still a big increase, but $103,000 of that is the recycling increase all by itself. Crossing guards, this one we expected this. We were able to take a lot of savings last year when schools closed. So we knew that was something we could use last year to our advantage to get us through the year. We knew we'd have to put this number back in to obviously restore the money to have the crossing guard program come back, which of course it has, and it looks like it's ramping up, which is great with school going back. And then the police department, again, we had a lot of cuts in this department. The really increase here is the full cost of the body worn cameras. We had the past 2 years, Chief Bataloro has done a great job of getting us money to offset our each year costs. Forfeiture funds were approved by the prosecutor's office. The prosecutor's office also gave us money. This year, we did not have those two luxuries. So it was a $67,000 increase, and yet the increase in the department is only $26,000. So we did cut some cost. Other departments, rather simple. The health department, it's actually a very big reduction, but it's because we had a huge grant last year, and the grant has to be matching appropriation. So the grant comes out for 21, the matching appropriation comes out, and yet you saw on the salary slide, we did add money there for staffing. Administration, very small increase. Administration makes up all these departments. So obviously very small increase there. Planning board, that's a consultant that we had last year is no longer needed this year. So that's a very big savings, and other things are pretty straightforward. So public events, that was Westfield 300, which was last year. So this year that's not needed. We're still having public events, but that overall budget comes down. So again, we cut everywhere we could. And I think, very manageable budget. So really just, a couple of things to wrap up budget pieces here. There's a lot more slides to come on capital, but we do anticipate, as we mentioned, second half recovery. Hopefully things continue with vaccinations and caseloads go down. And we hope that we can exceed our anticipated amounts, which will really help us in 2022. We mentioned a couple of times already, the $2.9 million is very helpful for us, and it gives us confidence to replenish revenues. And 3, ratables. Again, the assessor's office working hard with new staff, trying to keep the ratables up, which helps us to produce a lower tax rate for the resident. Higher property values, higher money that comes in throughout the course of the year with projects that will come online. One of the projects that will come online that will help us will be the Bentley, which is the new project around the traffic circle over on Westfield Avenue and First Street. That will come online fully this year. Again, another ratable that didn't exist before. So those things help us produce a lower tax rate. So before we get to capital, Linda, anything else on this slide?
No, I think that's a good summary of where we stand. We are, frankly, quite happy with how everything turned out in spite of, the situation that the pandemic served up for us. And, I just would like to thank again, all of the participants, the departments around the town of Westfield in particular, who, found some more ways to save money so that we could be, conservative in our projections this year.
Good, thank you. And I guess, so this is, we would normally wrap up this presentation. We want to add a few slides about capital. On the agenda tonight is also a capital bond ordinance to introduce a capital budget. So we wanted to take a few minutes to go through some capital things. It's very important, and it ties to what we're doing from progress perspective and doing, infrastructure work. So tonight's capital budget, capital ordinance that's on the agenda includes monies for roughly 18 miles of road paving. That's a combination of money we're going to put up for roads we're going to do, and also roads you'll see in a few minutes about Elizabethtown Gas due to our ordinance requirements is going to do as well. Some of those roads include some drainage improvements. There's some park improvement money in there for things like benches, park repairs, fencing repairs, all various parks, in addition to other things that might come our way. So we'll have money every year for things we want to do in the parks. Public safety improvements and equipment, things like buying additional speed boxes, speed traffic safety devices, things we can put up permanently in our areas around town, which have been successful. We want to continue that. And technology enhancements, things to get some things implemented, such as town council chambers upgrades, some replacement of other infrastructure in other places and other facilities. So, but the majority of the bond ordinance signs for roads. So let's spend a few minutes on that. Again, we do the capital ordinance sign is $2.6 million. That's being introduced, and that will basically pay for 5.5 miles of road we pay by the town. That's roughly about $2 million of the 2.6 for roads. 12.4 is expected to be paid by Elizabethtown Gas. This goes back to the relationship we established with Elizabethtown Gas and Utilities in 2019, which turned into a partnership, which then turned into the council adopting an ordinance to require this of all utilities, which is great. A lot of towns have that. And it's really been fruitful. And we learned a lot from the paving process that we partnered with Elizabethtown Gas in 2019, not only about the volume of work that can get done, but how they did it. The work they do is, of course, in grids. It's home to home, street to street, with the sewer or the gas lines be replaced. When they went back and repaved, we realized, wow, when you do things in a grid format, you can be much more efficient, much quicker in your process, and then you're getting grids of town done at one time. So you don't go back there every year or back there every other year and have equipment go over, pavement that was just done the year before, or create new seams where they don't have to exist. So we learned a lot from them, and that helped to guide us in our future planning. In addition to that, we did a road assessment, which you might remember. We had an independent company come in, performed a road assessment for us in 2019, and really didn't get to use it that much in 2020 because we had to take a break for financial reasons in 2020, as many towns did. So, the road assessment program, the partnership and the ordinance requirements with Elizabethtown Gas and other utilities, and allowed us to kind of look at how we're going to do roads going forward and really have a much different way of strategically planning roads, which really has brought us to where we are today. Since we had to take a break last year due to financial concerns, we weren't sure where we were going to be. We're back to where we normally would be with our capital program. So again, road assessment report plus the road ordinance for requirements for utility companies helps us strategically manage now and strategically plan out road paving, not just for 1 year at a time, but for multiple years. And now we're seeing the results of that. Utility companies are coming to us saying, oh, we're required to do this, but can we do our infrastructure project? So it's actually made them come to us, come to the table even sooner, and allows us to plan even better. So we do expect that we will, of course, after tonight's meeting, post the 2021 roads on our website, as we always do. That's the ones the town will be doing, and the ones Elizabethtown Gas are expected to do from the work they either are doing or have already finished. In addition to that, for the first time, because of what we've been doing the past year, since we had a little time to do it, we're also going to publish the roads we expect to pave in 22 and 23, and anything that Elizabethtown Gas or any utility company has told us that they plan on doing in 22 and 23. While it's a snapshot in time at this point, it will populate over time as we go forward in future years. This is the first time we're able to do that because we work with them. We have a road assessment program now based upon the scoring of roads. And that's really helping us be very strategic about what we do. And you'll see in a next slide or two, I'm going to ask the town engineer to say a few words about what the work he's done in planning this and really getting us the most cost-effective, cost-efficient program for not only the town, for the money we're going to spend, but for the residents and the disruption we cause only one time. So let me go to the next slide. There's some graphics here. Well, before I get to that, let me just go through here quickly and tell you about the history of road paving. And basically, again, you see in the out years, 19, 20, and 21, 20 being a year like 2012 was a year where it was a recession year. 20 was a year where we took a break because we had some financial uncertainty. We had a few roads done, but weathered that storm. But you see in 19 and 21, due to the requirements of the ordinance, due to the work we're doing, 20 and 17 miles, almost 18 miles of road done over the course of a 3-year period. It's unheard of. The town doesn't have the resources to do that every year. And so and remember, we only have 100 miles of road. So really in the last 4 years, particularly, we've almost paved 46 miles of road. And a lot of that now, more than half of that is done by utility companies at their expense. And we are on pace now, assuming utility companies still come to us and we continue our process, to pave 5 or 5.5 miles of road a year, we could have every road in town paved in the next 5 to 6 years. Again, assuming nothing happens and so forth, but that's unprecedented. Anyone who's been in municipal government knows how difficult it is to prioritize and manage debt service and so all those things every year. But we are in a great partnership now with these utilities based upon our road ordinance and based upon the coordination with the town engineer's office and getting this stuff done. It's really unprecedented. So again, kudos to the engineering office and the town council for giving us that ability to work on this and be able to have a very robust program. So again, just being doing this for so long, I really, it's shocking to me when you see the roads that can get done when you have these kind of things in place. So let me ask the town engineer to say a few words about the strategic resurfacing planning. And this is something that I just want to give him a lot of credit for. He's done a great job, and I'll let Chris talk about why this is a beneficial process for us. So go ahead, Chris.
Thank you, Jim. As Jim had said, the 2019 program with the gas company really shed a lot of light on operational paving in town. With the 2019 assessment as well, we looked at the worst first scenario. Let's take the lowest rated road and just work our way up to the highest rated. When you put that on a map, you kind of saw some inconsistencies, again, compared to how the gas company did their grid paving or cluster paving. So you see in this example, we have this area up in the north side. In the worst first scenario, we're going to be in this neighborhood in 2022, 23, 24, 25. So we're going to be there for 4 separate years, small sections of road, affecting the neighborhoods numerous times. What we decided in looking at those kind of anomalies and with the experience with the gas company is looking at this grid approach, where we are now, going into an area and just spending the time with the equipment to complete the entire, what we're calling the grid. Again, it decreases mobilization costs. It increases efficiencies and quality of work, as Jim was saying, with the joints and hot asphalt and equipment going over freshly paved roads from a year or two prior. And again, reducing the impact on the neighborhood, a one-time impact as opposed to a 4-time impact in the worst first scenario. Next slide, Jim.
Yeah, so that was a scenario on the, example 1. We have another example just to give it a different side of town too. Okay, Chris.
Right, and again, similar, to the north side, you see on the left, we're in an area, a neighborhood or grid over, in this case, 22, 23, and 25. Again, the efficiencies of having the milling and paving equipment in one area, that's when we determined it's best to use that approach. You see the grid approach again. We're in that area completing the entire grid in the one given year. Again, efficiencies, quality of work, neighborhood impact. Again, it did take a lot. I mean, I had really, this was the first capital budget where we had the assessment to use. I delved deep into it, just trying to come up with all these different scenarios and with our experience. And I believe if the council approves that this program is really going to be successful and moving forward.
Just one thing to add about this is that, the rating assessment, every road got what they call a PCI score, a pavement condition index score. And so, the way we've worked this in the Public Works Committee and the Finance Committee both worked on this with us, and they've seen this before. So our goal is part of the goal is to get roads paved, of course, but also increase our overall pavement condition index in the entire town. And so the goal here is that over a 6-year window, and it could speed up because of other work being done, basically any road that's rated 60 or less, maybe more 61 or less, will be paved in the next 6 years or sooner. We focus on a 3-year window because we know that's something we can, have pretty good certainty on. But the point of that is by moving things around to the grid approach, all the roads that we're going to get done in that period are just moved around in different years. Some gets moved up, some get moved back a year, but are all done in a grid. are all done to disrupt the neighborhood once. And then you can actually look ahead and see that, for 3 years at a clip this year, 22 and 23, where you are. And each year we'll add a year to that. So you can kind of see, but if all goes well, we are on pace to, by 2026 or before. And I think the answer is going to be before, because utility companies are still coming here wanting to do work, and they'll be responsible to pave some of those roads. We'll be able to have every road that's rated under 60 or even more than 60 paved. And again, as we mentioned, maybe all the roads, all 100 miles, 46 and change have already been done the past 4 years, paved in some way by somebody, us or utilities, in the next 4 to 6 years as well. So pretty significant opportunity for the town and for the residents to have this benefit. Everyone hears a lot about my road hasn't been paved in 20 years and 25 years. The partnership with Elizabethtown Gas, I just really want to thank them publicly. It really taught us a lot about the grid approach, and they've been great, partners with us as we went forward in this. Even though now it's a requirement, they've still been partners with us. And New Jersey American Water, the same thing. So I think it's pretty significant, and I know that we're excited to get started on it. And they've already contacted us this week. When can they start paving? So the quicker we get the ADA compliant ramps in, the quicker they can pave. So that's good.
Real quick, for roads that had like Midvale Terrace, for example, one of the worst roads in town had, I think, under a 20 PCI. It's that on the 3-year plan. So we have to wait for that to be done as a grid before, residents could get that street paved.
I remember, Chris, of what rating that was, but the grid approach does have some roads that basically wait a year or two to get done. So there's a grid, so we have the most efficient operation. I don't know the specifics of that specific road, Mark, but we can get that for you.
Okay.
But Jim, I think it's worth to point out, if I remember, basically every road that is rated very poor or poor, to the 2 lowest, sort of tiers in our PCI, rating system, all get paved in the next 3 years. So we were very attentive to that. But I think these color-coded charts are the reason why we can't do worst to first, which was really the starting off point. But it's disruptive and inefficient to pave that way. So, we do want residents to realize we looked at it. We used the PCI scores to build this plan, but the grid approach is much more efficient and allows us to pave more roads for less money, but with a goal of paving every road that's in sort of in those lower 2 tiers within the next 3 years. And in most cases, those roads are getting paved in the first 2 years. I don't know about Midvale Terrace, but I think that was the philosophy we used. And I think it's the goal is to use our tax dollars as wisely as possible and pave as many roads as possible.
Yeah, that's the point, David. It's set on the next 3-year plan. So that's why I brought it up. Thank you.
Yeah, and David, you mentioned inefficient and disruptive. The grid approach also allows us, to bring down the costs of paving, because it's more, and protect the roads too, so that you don't have big, heavy equipment going back over newly paved roads, which if you look at the worst first approach, that's what you would have to do.
Yep.
Okay, well, again, I think just want to thank you, Chris, for doing that. It's a good plan. I just to continue on and wrap up the few last slides here. So we talked about the road, obviously roads, we continue the robust paving program. We also have other work that's going on in town that is separate from our capital budget, but still work going on. So new traffic lights in Lambert's Mill and Rahway and West Broad and Scotch Plains are in process with the county. We do have a train station bar restaurant RFP that is likely to be awarded very shortly, and work getting started on renovations to that facility there, which is exciting. More to come on that. The user-friendly budget, user-friendly website is still in process, but we'll launch that in the second quarter, which is exciting as well. A lot of work being done there by all the departments, and 6 new EV charging stations in 3 town lots are actually being installed as we speak. Probably a few weeks away from those being installed and turned on. The Edison School Athletic Complex Master Plan moving forward with the Board of Education. More to come on that very shortly by the school and the Board of Education, or by the Board of Education in the town. Great concept plan there for future athletic complex. And of course, very shortly, the land use element circulation plan is to be finalized in the next few months to then begin and give us even more guidance on some of the redevelopment projects that are in the queue as we go forward, to give a lot of guidance on how those should be designed and so forth. So a lot of work going on various things in addition to the capital budget that we just talked about, road paving, which is exciting even in the face of the pandemic. So just summary on the budget. Of course, we went through the capital piece, but we're in very good financial health despite the COVID impacts. We went through that tonight. Again, we're getting the $2.9 million, which is a really nice addition to what we normally would generate. We hope it'll be used in future years, which is great. And again, I know as the mayor said this many times too, that again, in looking at these revenues, and it's come to light very, very vividly in the past 2 years because of COVID, our dependence upon these things that are so subject to things like a pandemic or other things are so hard to rely upon. So we're looking to slowly try to go away from those things and look at bigger things like smart growth planning, pilots, commercial properties, those type of things, which take time to develop, but those can be much more steady revenues for us in the future. And again, we're looking forward to a very good end of 2021 here to get some excesses in revenues. And of course, successful 22 and beyond to put us in a position to really continue and add more things as we go forward. So I don't know if Mayor or Lindy have anything else to add before we go to Q&A.
I think that's a great wrap up, Jim. I would only, amplify the point about, the good news at the end of the presentation, all the things that we're going to continue to progress in this year, despite the fact that we really had to tighten our belt on budgets and costs and things like that. So we're very, very committed to, achieving the long-term, capital plans and to continue making investments in the town of Westfield. So.
Mayor, you're on mute.
I said, I'll only reiterate what I had said in the conference session is I've been in lots of conversations with mayors, both in Union County and around the state. And many of them would love to be in our financial shoes. And so it's an incredibly strong financial position to be in, considering the pandemic and the toll it's taken on many municipalities. So again, I just want to thank all of you for doing really an incredible job to get us to this point, which is, incredibly exciting for things that are going to come in the subsequent years, because we're going to be well positioned to capitalize on them. So nice job.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing the screen so I can see if anyone wants to be heard or have any questions on the budget. So if you want to be heard on the budget or have a question, feel free to raise your hand virtually. See if we can answer your question. We open the floor now. Feel free to raise your hand virtually. Not seeing anybody yet. Give it a few seconds here. Anyone like to be a question on the budget here? We just went through the presentation. It was such a good presentation, Linda. Nobody wants to ask questions.
I guess we answered all the questions, Jim.
But all right, well, good. Well, we still have the public portion coming up, so we'll close this portion for the budget. And I guess, Mayor, unless the council has any other comments, we can move on to the next session meeting.
All right. So may I have a motion to approve the minutes from the conference meeting and regular meeting of March 9th, 2021?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? This motion is carried. Mrs. Rowley, do we have any petitions or communications?
No, Mayor, we do not.
Okay, now it's time for open discussion by citizens. Please virtually raise your hand to make your comment on any subject on which we have jurisdiction. Be sure to state your name and address for the record.
You want to be heard? Feel free to raise your hand and I can call upon you. Anyone like to be heard? One more time. Anyone like to be heard? Comments from the mayor and council? Okay, Mayor. Looks like
All right.
nobody wants to be heard tonight.
All right, hearing none, I guess we wore them out. I close this portion of the meeting and move to bills and claims. Councilman Hapgood.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move bills and claims in the amount of $266,588.55.
May I have a second?
Second,
Any discussion? All in favor?
yes.
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 Opposed? This motion is carried. Next on the agenda is reports to standing committees, beginning with the Finance Policy Committee. Councilman Hapgood.
Thank you again, Mayor. I have 12 items that I'd like to move I'd like to move the first 6 as a package. The first, a resolution authorizing the CFO to draw a warrant to refund street opening cash bond. The second, a resolution authorizing an award of contract for the pool concession. The third, a resolution authorizing the payment for body worn cameras. The fourth, a resolution to defer local district school tax. The fifth, a resolution to utilize the 3-year average method in computing certain revenues in 2021 swim pool utility budget. And the sixth, a resolution certifying the compliance with the United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission's guidance.
May I have a second?
Second,
Any
Councilman
discussion?
Hapgood, I do have a question. If you could just explain a bit more about number 4, deferring the local district school tax a bit. In between the conference session and this meeting, I actually had a conversation with a resident who wanted to know a little bit more about that. So if you could just expand on that.
Okay, I will start, and then I might need to get a little help from Jim, but my understanding is that this is a standard resolution that we have to do at this time of the year because the school budget and our town budget end at different times of the year. And we collect the taxes for the school district. And so there's some, work that we have to do through resolution to recognize, the fact that we have to defer certain things and pay them in their school year.
Right. Yep.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? This motion has carried.
And next, I'd like to move a resolution to adopt a temporary capital budget.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Please
Um,
call the roll. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mayor, it might be good just to remind everyone that we're adopting a temporary capital budget because we're trying to get out in front of the capital works that we want to do ahead of actually approving the budget. So this just enables us to get going on road work primarily.
And that's a great thing.
Yes,
So please call the roll.
Councilwoman Hapgood,
yes.
Councilman Parmalee,
Yes.
Councilman LaGrepo,
Yes.
Councilman Katz,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mackey,
Yes.
Councilman Contract,
Yes.
Councilman Dardia,
Yes.
Councilman Boyce,
Yes.
Mayor Brindle.
Yes, this motion has carried.
And then I'd like to move a resolution canceling a portion of the COVID-19 special emergency appropriation.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second,
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilwoman Hapgood,
Yes.
Councilman Parmalee,
Yes.
Councilman LaGrepo,
Yes.
Councilman Katz,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mackey,
Yes.
Councilman Contract,
yes.
Councilman Dardia,
Yes.
Councilman Boyce,
Yes.
Mayor Brindle.
Yes, this motion is carried.
And then I'd like to move general ordinance number 2210 on first reading, an ordinance for calendar year 2021 to establish a cap bank.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilwoman Hapgood,
Yes.
Councilman Parmalee,
Yes.
Councilman LaGrepo,
Yes.
Councilman Katz,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mackey,
yes,
Councilman Contract,
Yes.
Councilman Dardia,
Yes.
Councilman Boyce,
yes,
Mayor Brindle.
Yes, this motion is carried.
And then I'd like to move a resolution to introduce and approve the 2021 municipal budget.
May I have a second?
Second.
so moved,
Any discussion?
Mayor Brindle, I'll be voting to move the budget forward. But as I expressed in the conference session, my concern is this is the largest tax increase in 7 years. And we're taking the surplus below 6 million to, I believe, 5.8 million. So I just want to note the record on that.
Got it. Councilman Agrippa, when did you begin your term as first councilman?
10 years ago, July.
So you were here back in 2012, 13, and 14 when the tax rate was significantly higher, I suppose. And, right, and I assume you supported those budgets or not?
Yes, I did, but we were at a trend where we were doing well after the financial crisis and building up the surplus. And yourself,
But-
and Councilwoman Hapgood assured me the surplus would never go below 9.5 million. Obviously, that did not happen, so.
No, that's fine, and I just wanted to go on the record that you supported tax rates that were significantly higher than the one we're introducing when surpluses were significantly lower.
Well,
So
as you said before the pandemic last year, you made fun of a rainy day fund. Obviously, we could have used that money at this point to, like
Well,
Union
we
County is doing.
exactly.
Well, we did use it and used it very appropriately, but it's fine. I'm not in that. I don't mean to get in the back and forth. I just wanted to go on the record and make those points as well. So
Right.
thank you for your duly noted.
And could you go on
Um,
the record saying you wouldn't load a surplus below 9.5 million? I mean, it's
Well,
documented.
Well,
It's documented.
Councilman, there's no guarantees about anything, and I certainly would never have said that. What I did say is that I thought it was a good target to be somewhere in the $9.5
Right.
to $10 million range at the end of the year. So looking at what we have as a remainder after we made some investments from the surplus to help with this year's budget and to keep tax rates as low as we could. We're at 5.8. We have $1.45 million coming in this year in stimulus. We have $1.45 million coming in stimulus next year. And then as we saw from the slide earlier this evening, we naturally regenerate surplus, and we will definitely do it this year because we had to underestimate some revenues because of losses or because of reduced receipts from 2020, and we can't anticipate more than we received in any prior year. So there's no way that I could ever make a statement that we're going to achieve any particular numbers, but I do think that at the end of this year, we'll get back in the targeted range, and that's the goal.
Right. And I'll just, like you said, the budget's a snapshot in time. And at this point in time, the trend is not what we anticipated it to be even before COVID. So.
But actually, Councilman Agrippa, that's not, oh, sorry, Linda.
No, I was going to say the same thing, David, so feel free to jump in. It's not.
Oh,
true.
I mean, I just think Councilman Agrippa, we have said over and over again that when we came into office, a $14 million surplus was too high. And Linda said it earlier.
We
Hold on
agreed
a
on that.
second.
If you recall,
Sir, don't interrupt.
I'm sorry, Councilman Agrippa, Councilman Contract had the floor, please. So
Yeah,
please
don't-
direct your
don't-
comments to me before he let him finish, please.
So we said very clearly $14 million was too high and that we planned to bring it down. We brought it down primarily by purchasing equipment and only doing a 0.5% tax increase in 2018 and 0% in 2019. That I should remind the public leads to a 1.1% average tax increase over the last 4 years, which is 40 some odd percent below the prior 4 years, which I think was 2%. So again, we strategically use surplus to keep taxes low and invest in equipment. So the apples to apples comparison on surplus was 14 million to the end of last year, 9.6 million. So please don't say 14 million to 6 million, because you know that's not accurate.
No,
And it's-
5.8 million.
Sir, it's misleading, and we don't
Oh, it's the
mislead the
truth.
public,
So I'm
okay?
sorry, Councilman Agrippo, Councilman Contract is still speaking.
Yeah,
it's
so
only
I
fair
don't
to
think
let
it's
him
a-
make his point.
We shouldn't mislead the public. So the surplus was 14 million at the beginning of January
14.5 million.
2018,
Councilman
and then it-
Agrippo, please.
and it
Let him
ended at
finish his point.
it ended at 9.6 million. So if we want to talk about where it's going to be at the end of this year, to Linda's point, we can't predict that, but with certainty. But we do know that we're going to start at 5.8. There's government money coming 1.5 million. The town naturally regenerates. If you look at the average, it's 2 million or more. We'll end up back in that 9 to 10 million range, highly likely. So let's just get the facts out there so the public can understand it, and let's not mislead them. I'm done.
So,
Well, I just like to say, you said it yourself, David, 5.8 million. So that's all I have to say.
well, I think this is a good discussion. I think there's a fundamental difference in philosophy that we believe that there shouldn't be excess cash in the banks and that could be delivered to taxpayers, either in terms of services or a lower tax rate. And it's clear, Councilman Agrippo, and I will say in the last 4 years, the average surplus balance of this administration has been significantly higher than the average surplus balance of previous administrations. And the average tax rate is lower. So if I was a taxpayer, resident taxpayer, and looking at the record, I'd be looking at what administration has the higher surplus balance and the lower tax rate, and that would be this one. And I think it's something that we're all incredibly proud of. So, but if you believe that we need to put more money at the bank, earning almost 0% interest, instead of putting it to work on behalf of taxpayers or putting more money in their pocket, that's a legitimate policy conversation that we can have.
Right.
So,
No,
with that,
I'll only say I would have preferred to do something what the county's doing. This is the second year in a row.
We
They're
did
not
it 2
doing
years in a row.
a tax increase.
We did
Excuse
that.
me, I have the floor. Excuse me. So that's my point. We could have done more with a rainy day fund instead of having a lower budget. So again, it's philosophy. I do agree with
It
that.
is, and I think those are the policy conversations we need to have. And the only comment, and then we'll end on this, I'll make, is that 2 years ago, when we were at 0% tax because we wanted to make sure and mitigate any potential consequences of tax reevaluation, the county was not. So I think you have to look at any year in terms of make decisions based upon the circumstances of that period in time. So, and that's where we are. And again, I think we're incredibly proud of this. And I think we have legitimate and solid policy conversations to have. And I think that this administration can stand on our record very proudly of our fiscal and financial due diligence to the community. So, so with that, can you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Hapgood,
Yes.
Councilman Parmalee,
Yes.
Councilman Agrippo,
Yes, I'm moving the budget forward.
Councilman Katz,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mackey,
Yes,
Councilman Contract,
Yes.
Councilman Dardia,
Yes.
Councilman Boyce,
Yes.
Mayor Brindle.
Yes, this motion is carried.
I'd also like to move a resolution to introduce and approve the 2021 Special Improvement District budget.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mayor, I just want to add one thing to this. Just, we didn't mention it in the budget presentation. This is a separate budget, but I think it's important for the public to know, and especially the property owners in the SID, that this is a flat budget. The DWC has some revenues that had opportunity to anticipate. So the tax rate here for the SID is flat year over year, as it has been for quite a while. So kudos to DWC and Bob Zuckerman, our new director.
And kudos for also the many grants that they received. I don't know if Dawn has anything to add. You good, Dawn? Okay, so may I have a second? Did I do that already? Oh,
Second.
please call the roll.
Councilwoman Hapgood,
Yes.
Councilman Parmalee,
Yes.
Councilman LaGrepo,
Yes.
Councilman Katz,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mackey,
Yes.
Councilman Contract,
Yes.
Councilman Dardia,
Yes.
Councilman Boyce,
Yes.
Mayor Brindle.
Yes, this motion is carried.
And lastly, I'd like to move special ordinance number 2221 on first reading, a bond ordinance to authorize the making of various public improvements and the acquisition of new additional or replacement equipment and machinery, new communication and signal systems equipment, and new information technology equipment in, by, and for the town of Westfield and the county of Union, state of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $2,650,000 to pay the cost thereof, to make a down payment, to authorize the first issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
Please call the roll.
Councilwoman Habgood,
Yes.
Councilman Parmalee,
Yes.
Councilman LaGrepo,
Yes.
Councilman Katz,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mackey,
Yes.
Councilman Contract,
Yes.
Councilman Dardia,
Yes.
Councilman Boyce,
Yes.
Mayor Brindle.
Yes, this motion is carried. Next is the Code Review and Town Property Committee. Councilman Parmalee.
I have two resolutions that I'd like to move as a package. First, the first one is a resolution to approve a peddler's license, and the second is a resolution to approve outdoor seating as per Executive Order number 150, and authorizing the town clerk to issue licenses for same.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? This motion is carried.
Next, I'd like to move general ordinance number 2211 on first reading, an ordinance rescinding certain provisions of the town code for the town of Westfield. And I would just say that this is rescinding the fact that having an overdue library book was actually could be a municipal offense here in Westfield. You could be brought to municipal court jail for an overdue library book.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, Mayor, I did ask for clarification. Mark and I spoke about this during the week and the code review. So I'm in agreement with waiving the penalties, but I was asked for clarification. I asked Mr. Jardim about the ordinance in the library, this to do with waiving library fees, but I was asking, like, what's the recommendation as far as if we're waiving fees? What will people do to bring back books or museum passes, or what's the incentive?
Well, I'm not, I don't know, Mark. I mean, I only know what I read. I don't know, Tom, do anybody have any comments?
I think maybe, Jim, do you want to address that?
Yes.
What Bill's plan is?
Yes, I believe the library board has opted to use the services of a material recovery firm that will be reaching out to individuals who have overdue books and items, and essentially using a much more gentler approach to get them to return those items, as opposed to imposition of fines and fees.
And, I just add, for the purposes of the rescission of these provisions, that those provisions had nothing to do with the library fines themselves. That's up to the library board itself. And we don't the town council doesn't play a role in that. But this is just, it actually made it, in addition to the library fine, it made it a municipal offense. And it just didn't seem consistent with the goals of the library or the American Library Association.
Yeah, is that a volunteer service, or do we pay for that, or for the service to track people down to bring their books back?
These are all library questions.
Yeah, I believe that is I believe we do pay for this service. but I believe also the, if you will, the return on investment for that is like 7-1 in the town's favor.
I also, from what I've read about libraries, and this is something that's happening around the country, and charging late fees is very old school. And it actually, people were racking up so big, it prevented people from using the library or doing books because it felt very punitive in terms of things like that. So it's kind of like when Blockbuster started eliminating late fees and their business went up. It's the same mentality about libraries. So the notion of charging late fees is very yesterday. And what Councilman Boyes has said that they're using as a solution is definitely, you get more people using the library. That's really what they're for. And I think it's more in line with what their mission is, and it's consistent with what's happening around the country. So, but again, it's not our purview. We just, it's the library's decision, and they have the responsibility to determine what makes financial sense for them. So.
Thank you. Thanks, Tim.
Okay, could please call the roll?
Councilwoman Hapgood,
Yes.
Councilman Parmalee,
Yes.
Councilman LaGrepo,
Yes.
Councilman Katz,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mackey,
Yes.
Councilman Contract,
Yes.
Councilman Dardia,
Yes.
Councilman Boyce,
Yes.
Mayor Brindle.
Yes, this motion is carried.
And then last, I'd like to move general ordinance number 2212 on first reading, an ordinance requiring the licensing and registration of landscapers within the town of Westfield and making certain amendments to the Conservation Center guidelines, Conservation Center regulations.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilwoman Hapgood,
Yes.
Councilman Parmalee,
Yes.
Councilman LaGrepo,
Yes.
Councilman Katz,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mackey,
Yes.
Councilman Contract,
Yes.
Councilman Dardia,
Yes.
Councilman Boyce,
Yes.
Mayor Brindle.
Yes, this motion is carried. And last is the Public Works Committee, Councilman Contract.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move a resolution to award a contract for the construction and installation of ADA compliant curb ramps and drainage infrastructure.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? This motion has carried. Any other reports before I motion to adjourn? Yes.
I just wanted to add one thing at the end here. This, again, it's, introducing a budget is always an accomplishment every year, no matter what kind of budget year it is. But I want to say this was a unique year. Even last year, we were able to have our normal budget process. We met with everybody in person before the pandemic hit. The budget was almost finished, and we had to make some changes. But this year was unlike any other. We did everything via Zoom. I want to thank the Finance Committee. I want to thank the department heads. It was a very unique year to put together a $46 million budget, but everyone really did a great job, and did sharing the screen and seeing things. It wasn't the same as being in person because a lot of that is missed in that process. But I just want to thank the Finance Committee and the council as a whole and the department heads really for doing a great job under difficult circumstances. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. And we saved
Yeah,
a few
no,
trees.
thank you, Jim.
Yeah, we saved.
Great
some
job.
trees for sure. Thank you. Great job to you too, Jim.
Thanks.
So may I have a motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay, this meeting is carried, motion is carried, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, and good night, everybody. Congrats on
Good
the
night.
meeting.
Thank you,
Good
everyone.
job.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Thanks so much.